This is actually an important topic that a lot of people don't know about, and I want to really clarify today. IRS Form Schedule 8812, Line by Line Instructions, how to claim the additional child tax credit. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous, if you were to ask me. If you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee, or tea, or vodka, and let's roll. In today's conversation, I want to talk to you about Schedule 8812, and this talks about the additional child tax credit. Let me just kind of give you an overview here of what we're talking about. So, in addition to the non-refundable child tax credit and the credit for other dependents that is claimed on line 12A of Form 1040, a taxpayer with one or more qualifying children may be able to claim the refundable additional child tax credit on Schedule 8812. The thing here is that the taxpayer is eligible for the refundable credit if some portion of the non-refundable child tax credit was disallowed because the taxpayer's tax liability was reduced to zero before the entire child tax credit was used. So if for a specific reason the IRS has disallowed that child tax credit, then you can actually resort to the additional child tax credit. That's what's called additional. And the thing here is that if the non-refundable child tax credit was phased out due to adjusted gross income limitations of $400,000 for a taxpayer filing as a married filing jointly, and $200,000 for all other filing statuses, no additional credit will be allowed. So that distinction is very important to understand. So the refundable additional child tax credit is calculated on Schedule 8812. I'll show you how to do that, and is reported on line 17B of Form 1040. The Schedule 8812 is automatically generated in your tax software when necessary, depending on the answers to due diligence questions about the dependents, the amount of earned income, and the tax liability of the return. So, all general, the top tax software tools are pretty good when it comes to walking you through the questionnaire that will let you know whether or not you qualify for the additional child tax credit. We've tested everything from H&R Block to TurboTax to Tax Act, and they're pretty good. So tax credits like the additional child tax credit can provide parents with a valuable tax break to help with the costs that come with raising kids. But you gotta submit the right forms in order to claim the credit. So I've been talking about Schedule 8812. What is that? Schedule 8812 is basically the form used to claim the additional child tax credit. So understanding the additional child tax credit begins with the child tax credit, right? You need to understand the child tax credit, the primary one. So starting with the 2018 tax year, the child tax credit is worth up to $2,000 per qualifying child. Like all tax credits, the child tax credit reduces your tax bill on a dollar for dollar basis. So basically, it is a credit. So a credit by definition reduces your tax bill, whereas a deduction will reduce what? Your taxable income. That's the main distinction to understand when it comes to credit versus deduction. So a portion of the child tax credit is refundable as the additional child tax credit. So up to $1,400 of the credit is refundable. $1,400. In other words, if the credit reduces the amount of federal income tax you owe to zero, you can get all or some of the excess credit back as a refund. And of course, you got to meet the qualification. I will talk about the qualification. So it is very important to understand that you have to meet certain qualifications. And if you meet those qualifications for claiming the additional child tax credit, you will need at that point to complete and file Form 8812. The guidelines are pretty clear And the guidelines revolve around having a qualifying child or qualifying children, meeting some income and some income requirements, and also, and very important, the status of your the filing status that you have for that particular year for you to be able to claim the additional child tax credit. So how do you really calculate the ACTC, the additional child tax credit? The the actual calculation of the refundable child tax credit is pretty straightforward. It is predicated on the following criteria. Now, before I give you the criteria, folks, I just want to let you know that right now, nowadays, you have software that does everything for you automatically based on the answers that you actually provide the software during the due diligence process. However, it is very critical to understand how things go and how things work behind closed doors, if you will. In other words, you have to have a basic understanding of what an additional child tax credit is, even if the software is doing part of the work for you. Because God forbid you get a letter from the IRS, if you have a CP 2000 notice, they don't care really whether it was a software tool that prepared the return for you, or it was a person, or it was yourself. You got to be able to understand what we're talking about so you can answer the IRS clearly and confidently. All right. So the calculation of the refundable child tax credit is predicated on the following. So taxpayers with one or two children. So you need the lesser of the disallowed portion of the regular child tax credit, or 15% of the taxpayers' earned income in excess of $2,500. That's the first part. Or for taxpayers with three or more children, you have the lesser of the disallowed portion of the regular child tax credit, or the larger of 15% of the taxpayers' earned income in the excess of $2,500, and FICA and Medicare tax paid minus earned income credit. We're going to put this on the screen, and I'm going to give you some time to read it again. So we're putting this on the screen right now. Taxpayers with one or two children. So you have the formula here. And then we have taxpayers with three or more children. Here is the formula. All right, I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous, if you were to ask me. And we're still having a conversation here about Schedule 8812. I'm giving you line-by-line instructions. I'll give you right now line-by-line instructions and on how to claim the additional child tax credit. So Schedule 8812 is pretty straightforward. And unlike some other tax forms, it is a single-page document. And so here is the info requested on each line of the form. Note that those instructions assume you file Form 1040. And if you file using Form, let's say 1040NR or 1040SR, the tax form for seniors, you want to check out the IRS instructions for Schedule 8812. And note that this walkthrough is based on the updated version of Schedule 8812 as of December 2020. All right. So you can see right now on the screen here, please look with me on the screen. So we have Part 1. So on line 1, you have to include so both IRS publication 972 and the instructions for Form 1040 include a child tax credit and credit for other dependents worksheet to help determine whether you qualify to claim for the CTC or the ACTC and calculate the amount of the credit. So you want to enter the amount from line 10 of the child tax credit and credit for other dependents worksheet in publication 972 or line 8 of the worksheet in the Form 1040 instructions. So this is for line 1. Line 2, you want to enter the amount from Form 1040 line 19, and this is actually the non-refundable amount of the child tax credit that you were able to claim in the first place. And it's kind of critical to note that you may also need to file Form 8862 to claim the child tax credit. on line 3, you want to subtract the amount from line 2 from the amount on line 1. All right. And if the result is 0, you claim the full child tax credit and no portion is refundable. So you don't need to file Schedule 8812. Moving on, we have line 4 here. You can see on the screen. You want to enter the number of qualifying children you have multiplied by 1,400. This is the portion of the child tax credit that's refundable. I said that earlier, right? And this should be the same number of children used for line 1 of the child tax credit and credit for other dependents worksheet. On line 5, you need to enter the smaller amount of line 3 or line 4. And what about line 6A? This is where you'll include earned income. So this amount comes from the earned income chart included in the instruction for Schedule 8812. So it really kind of depends on whether you have earnings from self-employment and whether you're claiming the earned income credit or EIC. And line 6B, if you or your spouse, if married, filing jointly, received any non-taxable combat pay, you want to include it here. And if you have non-taxable combat pay, you should find the amount on your form W-2 that you received from your military employer. Okay, and it will be in box 12 of the form with the code Q. All right. So I'm continuing here. We have line 7. We were talking about line 6, so now we have line 7. And line 7, you need to check yes or no to actually indicate. Are you with me? Okay. So you need to actually check check yes or no to indicate whether the amount on line 6A is more than 2,500. Now remember that it's very important to understand. You must have at least 2,500 in earned income to claim the additional child tax credit. You got to have a little bit of income, okay? And if you answer no, you'll leave line 7 blank and enter a 0 on line 8. And if the amount on line 6A is more than the threshold at $2,500, you will subtract $2,500 from the amount on line 6A and enter the results on line 7. Do you see that? Okay. Now for line 8 has multiple lines here. So for line 8, you want to multiply the amount on line 7 by 0.15. So that's 15%. And you want to enter the result here. All right. And so basically the thing here is that you need to check yes or no to indicate whether the amount on line 4 is 4,200 or more. It will be 4,200 or more if you can claim 3 or more qualifying children. So at this point, you will take one of the following 4 steps. And I'm going to be very, very slow. I want you to pay attention and take notes if possible. So you have one of the following 4 steps. If line 4, the number of qualifying children you have multiplied by 1,400 is not 4,200 or more, or line 8 is 0, you cannot claim the credit. Scenario number 4, if number 2 rather, if line 4 is not 4,200 or more, and line 8 is greater than 0, you want to skip part 2 and enter the smaller of line 5 or line 8 on line 15. If line 4 is $4,200 or more, and line 8 is equal to or more than line 5, you want to skip part 2. You want to skip to part 2 actually, and you want to enter the amount from line 5 on line 15. All right, and the 4th scenario here is that if line 4 is $4,200 or more and line 8 is less than line 5, you want to continue on to complete part 2. So speaking about part 2 here, and I'm showing you on the screen, let's talk about part 2. You can see on the screen right now. So basically, so you'll need to complete this section if you have determined that it is necessary by following the instructions for line 8 above. So the draft form notes that this section is for certain filers who have 3 or more qualifying children. All right. So on line 9, you want to enter your and your spouse's, if married, filing jointly, withheld Social Security, Medicare, and additional Medicare taxes from forms W-2, boxes 4 and 6. And the line 9 worksheet from the instructions for Schedule 8812 can help with your calculations. And moving on, we have line 10. So here you have to enter the total from Schedule 1, line 14. This is basically the deductible portion of any self-employment tax you paid, as well as Schedule 2, line 5. This is the unreported Social Security and Medicare tax you paid, plus any taxes that you have identified using the code UT on Schedule 2, line 8. And on line 11 rather, this is pretty straightforward. You just need to add lines 9 and 10 and enter the result here. For line 12, you want to enter the total amount from 1040, line 27. This is the earned income credit, and Schedule 3, line 10, which is the excess Social Security and Tier 1 RRTA tax withheld. And then when you move on, and then for line 13 here, you need to subtract line 12 from line 11. And if it's 0 or less, you just want to enter 0. And line 14, you want to enter the larger of line 8 or line 13. Then you need to enter the smaller of line 5 or line 14 or line 15. And for line 15, basically, this is your additional child tax credit. So you just need to enter the amount shown here on Form 1040, line 28. And the thing here is that line 15 is actually part of Part 3. This is Part 3. And it's not where you enter the amount, with the additional child tax credit. You need to actually put the, that's what it is, yes. Line 15 is really the additional child tax credit, and it's part of Part 3. My fault. Okay, so this is pretty clear. So either way, you can see everything on the screen. We have the form on the screen so you can see it. And yeah. So this is basically it. Let me just give you a few more pieces of information. What are the next steps here? So next steps, while it's a relatively simple, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward form. Schedule 8812 requires several calculations and checks between different schedules, forms, and worksheets, right? Now, DIY tax software may help make completing the form and claiming the additional child tax credit easier. Again, whether you're talking about Credit Karma Tax, TurboTax, H&R Block, Tax Act, or the other tools, they can help you make things a lot easier. So your tax software and filing service can help you complete Schedule 8812, as well as most common forms and schedules. So whether you e-file yourself or work with a paid preparer, claiming the child tax credit and additional child tax credit will take some work on your part in terms of gathering the paperwork, in terms of making sure everything is fine, making sure providing the paid preparer with all the info that is necessary. That's very important, right? And the work also has to come from the fact that you want to double check to make sure that your children, the ones that you are claiming for the additional child tax credit, are indeed qualified children. In other words, they meet the requirements that the authorities have put in place. All right. So, and this is important to file to claim this additional child tax credit if you qualify for it, because think about it. The opportunity to reduce the amount of tax you owe and possibly increase a tax refund could make it worth the effort to claim the credits if you are eligible for them. And this is kind of important. All right, folks, this is it for today's conversation. I really appreciate your attention so far. So today I was giving you a short convo about Form Schedule 8812 line-by-line instructions, and I was just telling you what is Schedule 8812, how do you calculate the ACTC, how do you fill out the Form Schedule 8812, and some of the next steps. I'll see you next time. I really appreciate your attention. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.